Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're taking a massive leap in our web development journey. You've already conquered the basics of HTML. You know how to create headings, paragraphs, and links to navigate between pages. But today, we're going to transform those plain text documents into vibrant visual experiences. Let's dive right into this beginner's guide to visual web development, focusing entirely on HTML images.
Imagine visiting Amazon, Instagram, or YouTube without any images. Websites would feel empty and confusing. Images help users understand content faster and make websites more engaging. In this lesson, you'll learn how to add images to your web pages using HTML.
Okay, let's look at our syllabus so you know exactly what concepts we're conquering today. First, why web images matter. Second, the image tag and source. Third, alt text and accessibility. Fourth, sizing and image formats. Fifth, common mistakes to avoid. And finally, a quick recap and a coding challenge.
All right, part 1, why web images matter. Let's talk about visualizing the web.
So, browsers rely heavily on visual elements to break up massive walls of text. It just reduces cognitive load, meaning it keeps users on your page way longer without getting overwhelmed. But beyond just looking pretty, images are super powerful communicators. They can instantly convey complex data through a chart or show off a product from multiple angles. Plus, as we'll learn in just a bit, the text data we attach to these images is absolutely crucial for SEO, search engine optimization. See, search engines like Google can't actually see a photo. They rely entirely on the code we write to understand what that image represents.
Moving right along to part 2, the image tag and source. This is where we learn how to actually embed these visuals.
Well, everything starts with the image tag. Now, if you remember from our previous lessons, most HTML tags come in pairs, right? An opening tag and a closing tag, like when you type out a paragraph. But the image tag is special. The MDN Web Docs calls it a void element. That basically means it stands completely on its own. You open the angle bracket, type IMG, and that's it. You never actually need a closing /IMG tag. It simply drops an image directly into the document, right where you place it.
But here's the catch. An image tag all by itself doesn't really do anything. You have to tell the browser what image to display. And we do this using the SRC attribute, which stands for source. I like to think of the SRC attribute as a map's exact address. It gives the browser the specific directions it needs to go fetch the visual data behind the scenes. Honestly, without this address, the browser is completely lost.
Let's look at this in practice. Here is a perfect, simple snippet of HTML code. We have our opening angle bracket, IMG, space, SRC equals, quote, nature.jpg, quote. When you write this code, the browser reads it, follows the map to find the file named nature.jpg, and ultimately, boom, the user sees a beautiful nature photograph rendered right there on their screen. You'll also spot an alt attribute in this code, which we're going to unpack in just a moment.
And this brilliantly illustrates a really important concept. Where are these images actually stored? You essentially have two options, relative paths and absolute paths. A local image using a relative path points to a file sitting right inside your own project folder. Notice our first example here. The source is images/profile.jpg. The browser literally just looks inside your local folder called images to find it. An online image, however, uses an absolute URL. That's when you pull an image hosted on an entirely different server, which means you need the full HTTPS address. Basically, use local images for your own site's resources and absolute URLs when you're linking out to different external domains.
Section 3. Alt text and accessibility. This is all about inclusive web design.
So, you notice that alt attribute in our earlier code snippets? Well, alt stands for alternative text. Think of it as a backup translator for your image. It's just a brief textual description of what the image shows. If, for literally any reason, the visual cannot be seen, this text steps right in to save the day.
Let's visualize what happens when things go wrong. Imagine you accidentally misspell the file name in your SRC attribute, or maybe your user is on a terrible internet connection, and the image just totally fails to load. Without alt text, the browser displays this sad, confusing, broken image icon. It's kind of a terrible user experience, right? But with alt text, the browser will gracefully display your descriptive backup text instead. Sure, the user might not see the beautiful nature photo, but they will read the words beautiful nature and understand exactly what was supposed to be there.
So the absolutely crucial point here is that writing descriptive alt text goes way, way beyond fixing broken links.
As the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG, state, it is a Level A requirement. People who are visually impaired rely on software called screen readers to browse the internet. When a screen reader encounters an image, it literally reads the alt text out loud to the user. Without it, entire portions of your website become completely invisible to them. On top of that, search engines heavily rely on alt text to understand the context of an image, making it a total cornerstone of good SEO.
All right, moving into Section 4, sizing and image formats. Let's optimize those visuals.
Did you know you can control the size of an image directly in your HTML? You just use the width and height attributes. For instance, by setting a width of 400 directly in our HTML, we're declaring the size in pixels. Now, why does this actually matter? Well, have you ever been reading an article online and suddenly a massive image loads and pushes all the text down, making you lose your place? Yeah, that's called a layout shift, and it's incredibly annoying. By declaring the width and height directly in your code, you're telling the browser exactly how much space to reserve for that image before it even downloads. It makes the whole web page load so incredibly smoothly.
Now, setting the right dimensions is only half the battle. Choosing the right file type is the whole other half. As outlined in a great piece from the Short Pixel blog, different formats serve different purposes. JPGs, they are the absolute standard for photographs because they compress complex colors beautifully. PNGs are what you need when you have sharp edges or need a transparent background, like if you have a logo with no white box around it. GIFs are kind of old and heavily limited in color, but they're still widely used for simple, short animations, especially in emails. SVGs are incredible because they use math instead of pixels. That means a vector logo will look perfectly sharp whether it's on a tiny mobile phone or a giant billboard. And finally, WebP is the modern hero. It basically does everything JPG and PNG do, but with significantly smaller file sizes.
Section 5. Mistakes to avoid. Let's go over some common beginner errors.
Based on some really helpful discussions from developers over on the dev community, here are the classic beginner trip-ups to watch out for. First, leaving alt text blank, or typing things like image of a dog. Screen readers already announced that it's an image, so saying image of is totally redundant. Just say a dog. Second, using a massive PNG file for a complex photograph. It'll make your web page load painfully slowly. Stick to JPEG or WebP for those photos. Third, as we just discussed, forgetting your width and height dimensions, which causes those annoying layout shifts. And finally, simple typos. Forgetting a single closing quote mark around your file path will break the entire element, leaving you with that dreaded broken image icon. So always, double check your code.
And we've made it to Section 6, Recap and Coding Challenge. It's time to test your skills.
Okay, I want you to open up your code editor right after this explainer and try this mini hands-on task. Ready? First, create a heading that says, My Favorite Place. Second, find an image of your favorite place online or on your computer and add it using the image tag. Third, write proper, descriptive alt text for it. And fourth, set a custom width for the image so it fits really nicely on the screen. Seriously, testing this out yourself is absolutely the best way to make the syntax stick in your brain.
Let's do a quick, rapid-fire recap of our element's anatomy before we wrap up. The MG tag is your void element foundation. The SRC attribute is the map's address pointing to your file path. The alt attribute acts as your backup translator for accessibility and SEO. The width and height attributes prevent layout shifts by reserving visual space. And you now know the exact difference between pulling a local image from your own folder versus using a full URL for an online image.
You have officially unlocked the power of visual web development. Now that you know how to add images to your web pages, in the next lesson we'll learn how to organize content using HTML lists, including ordered lists, unordered lists, and nested lists. Before you go, ask yourself, what is the very first visual story you are going to